So today I'm going to go over 4 things I learned from Tom Bukovac's blues song. If you don't know who Tom Bukovac is, he's a beloved YouTuber. He has a channel called Homeskoolin, and he starts every episode with just he plays a song. You know, it's kind of almost improvise, or maybe it's something he's been working on, and it's always phenomenal playing. But every once in a while, I mean, some of those are just gold. They're just amazing. And so in his episode 2, I think it's 221, he plays this unbelievable blues song. It's really incredible. And not only is it phenomenal playing and it's phenomenal blues, but I think part of what's so good about it is it also feels very authentic to Uncle Larry. You know, it feels like Uncle Larry's blues. So I sat down with it for a little bit, tried to pick some things off. You know, I could probably make 1,000 videos just off of all the licks. But I'm going to pick 4 things that I think stood out to me and maybe will help other people. So the first thing is the most important thing, which is groove and harmony. So the song's in G minor. And what Uncle Larry does is he just keeps this kind of punishing, propelling, chunking groove the whole time. And one thing to note about that is even when he's playing his lead, you can still feel the pulse of that groove, which I think is a great goal for anybody playing lead. You know, you want to keep that groove throughout the whole song. So a lot of people in blues, what they'll do is they'll just do the shuffle with that. Which is fine, but that can kind of get trite and gets old after a while. A trick I learned once was that if you have a minor chord, you can always go a whole step down and play a major chord. And that's immediately a lot better. But what Uncle Larry does is he takes it to a level way beyond that. What he does, instead of playing the F down here and coming from beneath the G minor, he's going to play an inversion with the major third here, which is the A. And that way he's coming from the top, going down to that G. And what he's going to do to also thin it out and make it a little cleaner is he's just going to play this dyad here, this F and this C. So you have like a power chord of F. And then he uses the pick to kind of get that chug and attack. I think he's using a pick to hit that A note. And then when he goes to the G, he keeps those 2 strings, that D and G string, and he hits the G with his thumb and then bends the minor third up. So together, you're going. Which is just this great rhythm, and coming from above completely changes everything from coming from the bottom. You know, this goes to show how important bass notes are with everything. Another thing you can do with this is you can bend that note down, which allows you to hit that D there, and which is the 5th of G, so kind of is in the key. And then once you do that, you could let go of the minor third, which is going to hit the G open string, and then kind of add that little part to it if you wanted. So it'd be. So the F major inversion comes from the D-shaped F chord down here. And if you know your triads, I mean, it's the same thing as caged. It's all there. It's all out of the kind of that position. So the second thing I learned from this song is the importance of microtonal playing and articulation. So the microtonal playing in blues is so important. If you slow Tom's licks down, I mean, he's finding the blue notes everywhere. You know, he's not just going from the 4th to the flat 5th to the 5th, you know. He's not just. He's finding those blue notes everywhere. I mean, he even finds the blue notes on the root note. You know, he's hitting that flat second. And as far as articulation, I mean, Tom's incredible with that stuff. It took me a while to learn that in general. You know, I would know the notes and the licks, but it never sounded right until I realized it's about kind of how you attack those notes with the rakes and the bends and the slides. So Tom starts a song with a great lick that kind of works on that articulation. It's a good way to practice it. The lick is in C minor or C major. I don't, you know, it's in the key in C. Essentially, what I think he's doing is he's starting off in the C, and then he's going to and pushing that to the G. So if you think about the C minor pentatonic, that's kind of where that lick comes out of. And it starts on the 10th fret of the, B string, and he bends it up a little bit. And that's the major 6 of that C minor. And throughout the whole song, he hits a lot of those major 6 in this blues stuff, and it sounds amazing. He kind of bends it up to that flat 7 a little. So he hits that and does that little micro bend. And then that articulation part that I'm talking about is he does this up rake. He does it really quick, and I think he like frets each note and rolls it. I have to bar them. So you're on the G and D string on the, what is that? That's the 8th fret. And then he hits that C note there on the 10th. And then he goes down here to this top part of that pentatonic and does that same kind of upstroke. So slowly it's, but he does it just so quick, and I don't know how he's fretting each of those notes. So it's a great lick, and it's also a good way just to practice that right hand articulation to get that kind of feel and that visceral feel into the blues. You know, Stevie Ray Vaughan is you know, has probably got one of the best upstrokes in the game. If you're not familiar with the up rake, you know, you could just, you know, if you're gonna hit that C, you just practice that to get familiar with it. But throughout that episode, I mean, there's a million examples of Tom's phenomenal microtonal and expressive articulation stuff. The third thing I learned was that this song is a great example of Tom's two bulls on a hill philosophy. He's told it a couple times on his channel, but the story is there's these two bulls sitting on a hill. You know, there's a young one and an old one, and they're looking down at a herd of cows, and the young one goes to the old one, "Hey, why don't we run down there real quick and fuck one of those cows?" And the old one pauses, says, "No, why don't we walk down there and fuck them all?" So it's a great philosophy because it applies to so many things. There's so many things in life that we rush through or try to do quickly, when if we slowed down, things would be a lot better. Specifically with music, this happens a lot in guitar solos. I do it myself all the time. You know, sometimes when I'm playing with my bandmates or jamming, you know, my solo comes up and the adrenaline hits, and all of a sudden I'm going way too fast and I can't take it up any more notches. And then when I listen back, I just feel like I'm getting blasted with notes. And I've heard other players do this too, where they just come out playing blistering licks, and then it just kind of stays at that place, and it just becomes kind of white noise after a while. So Tom's song is such a good example of that philosophy of being an old bull. You know, he's building it so slow in the beginning, you know, just playing very small, minimalist licks, you know, one or two notes. You know, he's hitting that major 6 a lot and kind of keeps that theme. But he just builds and builds, so that way when he's shredding up here on the neck, it peaks the song, you know, it matches the emotion. He kind of climbs up there slowly, you know, gets it all. the last thing I learned from Tom is his just amazing ear for melody and chords. So instead of doing the normal, 4 and 5 kind of turnaround, he does this amazing kind of bridge turnaround thing. I think the harmony is just, it goes from A, and then he plays a lick and he goes to C, plays a lick and goes to D, and then he plays a lick and goes to F, which just builds and builds the tension to pull it back around when he finally goes back to that main riff. But the amazing part is how he voices all those. So, he plays A normal, and then the riff is just that second to the minor third. So second to the minor third, root, and then that F sharp. He quickly plays the C like this, where he hits the root of C, open G, and A. I think he is. I don't know how he grabs that shit so quick. He goes back to the lick, plays the D up here. So it's like D and then the major third. You can hit that open D there too. So the two together. And then for the F, like who would have ever thought to play that lick for the F chord? So he's hitting the F, and then he hits the fifth, which is a C, and then he finishes on the D. And that D again is that major 6. He's just crushing that major 6. But that voice and the way he plays it just sounds so good. Like I wish I could come up with that type of stuff on my own. It's just an incredible bridge there. Like you don't hear stuff like that. Obviously I gotta spend more time to get it under my fingers a little bit better. But it's just his way of playing chords is really incredible. And I don't have any advice on how to develop that skill, because I can't come up with stuff like that on my own. I think the things that he's doing, he's playing that 6 a lot throughout. It's like a theme throughout this, is he's hitting that 6 note. They're kind of 6 chords. And he's a big fan of spreading the triads out and hitting open strings. I guess maybe just like after you come up with your chord progression, maybe spend some time and try to find some of those color notes. I don't know. Maybe Tom can shed some light on how he comes up with this gorgeous harmony. Even if you play it like that, it just sounds great. And again, that's the context of a blues song. That's why I think it's just incredible. Just to review the 4 things I learned. The first one is the importance of the bass note and groove. And then the second thing is the importance of the microtonal bends and articulation in the right hand is so important in blues. Almost more important than the notes you play. Then the third thing is to be patient. When you're coming into solos, especially blues solos. We all have our preferred licks, but sometimes it's better to go slow. And then the last thing is just exploring harmony and trying to find different colors of chords to make things a little more interesting. So if you haven't already, I would definitely listen to the song. I'll put a link in the description below so you can check it out. And it's just such a good example of the details you need to be good at blues. I feel like with the blues, it's one of those things where it's easy to become an intermediate, and it's very difficult to get out of the intermediate phase. I feel like even almost some pro level players are really good intermediate players that play licks really well. And I think Tom shows his mastery of it. You know, he's doing all the blues stuff extremely well, but it feels very authentic. You know, it sounds like Uncle Larry. It's like Uncle Larry's blues, and he's not. You can tell he's not just trying to crush blues licks and do motor memory stuff. You know, it's not like a blues competition that some people do where they just see how, you know, who can play the quickest blues licks. There's a lot of feel and a lot of harmonic intention, and then with his right hand and just that articulation, I mean, it's just masterful. Yes, hopefully that was useful for somebody. If not, I sure shit enjoyed listening to Tom. Yeah, check out his song.